Misery is a song that John Lennon and Paul McCartney wrote at a different emotional depth. The second track on Please Please Me, it wasn't a hit single, nor was it ever intended to be. Yet it's a fascinating snapshot of Lennon and McCartney's early songwriting. And it's a song with an interesting origin story. In January 1963, the Beatles were touring with Helen Shapiro, a 16-year-old pop sensation with two number-one hits. McCartney and Lennon, who were really just starting to cut their teeth as songwriters, thought they'd try writing something for her, a downbeat, introspective ballad that they composed backstage at the King's Hall in Stoke-on-Trent. The lyrics and melancholy vibe were unusual for the time, especially in the context of upbeat early 60s pop, but Shapiro's manager rejected the song, probably deciding it was too somber for her. McCartney later admitted the lyrics might have felt too pessimistic, but for Lennon, that was exactly the appeal. It's not very flashy and has a fairly straightforward structure, but it does what it sets out to do: evoke a wistful, almost self-pitying sense of loss. In the studio, Misery benefited from George Martin's technical creativity, and here's where it gets interesting. George Harrison was having issues with getting the little guitar leads just right on the song, so Martin decided to step in for him and added in piano overdubs in place of the guitar lines. But he didn't just record the piano part straight, he had it played at half speed, so that when it was sped up, it sounded a bit like a tack piano or even a harpsichord. And this little trick wasn't just a one-off either. Martin would use it again many times, including on the solo for In My Life a couple of years later. Even though Helen Shapiro turned it down, which she would later go on to deeply regret, Misery still became the first ever Lennon-McCartney song to be covered by another artist. Fellow tourmate Kenny Lynch took it up, although this cover failed to gain much chart success. But still, it was a sign of things to come, as other artists quickly recognized the potential of Lennon-McCartney songs. You can hear the early experimentation, the willingness to step outside the bounds of what's expected for a young pop band. It's not revolutionary, but it's honest, and that's what makes it interesting. It shows a couple of young songwriters finding their voices, testing the waters of a more introspective style that would come to define their later work. It's a small piece of the Beatles' story, sure, but it's a revealing one, and capturing that moment when Lennon and McCartney were beginning to understand the full potential of their collaboration. In a way, Misery is less about heartbreak and more about the creativity that comes out of taking risks, even when those risks don't pay off the way you thought they would.